To quote Outcast, hey everyone, I'm Jesse from the Janjo Zone here for 5 more spicy Yugi Kaiba Tech 2002 Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks for you all. I want to thank everyone who have suggested decks for this, I suppose, limited series. I do have at least 1, maybe 2 more deck videos planned in which I need you all to help me out to suggest ones. So let's just get started with the first one. And again, these are in no particular order. These are mostly theory decks, so let's just have fun with it. Wait. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, because that helps me upload more videos and know that you like content like this. Alright, so the first one I want to talk about is Antimeta. This is kind of an interesting deck that was suggested to me. It has very specific cards in it. The main 2 being Reverse Trap and Gravedigger Ghoul. These cards are interesting because Gravedigger Ghoul, let's try to reverse that again. Gravedigger's Ghoul is interesting because it's like a precursor to Soul Release. Instead of disposing of 5 monsters to the Banish Zone, it's only up to 2 monsters are removed from play, which... okay. It's not great. The concept behind this is that it hurts your opponent from using a card destruction to resurrect one of their monsters, or just to plainly use a Monster Reborn. The problem is that Monster Reborn works with your graveyard as well, so you're probably not going to get a ton of value off of it. You could resurrect a Lajin, summon Skull, Blue Eyes, what have you. It's probably better against dragon decks that want super strong monsters to resurrect, because those are harder to deal with than a Lajin, Neo, whatever. So you wouldn't want to run 1, because that's just not enough. You wouldn't want to run 3, because that's too much of cards that don't really give you too much advantage, because Monster Reborn is only 1 card in the deck. So you kind of have to run 2 to at least get rid of your opponent's more of their resources than not. Reverse Trap is a more interesting card here, though. There was a time when people were kind of more warming up to it, but now it's kind of fallen back down. The thing with Reverse Trap is that it's mostly used for against Fiend-equipped decks, or against a card like Reinforcements. So what it does is that it reverses power boosts from spell or trap cards, which is great inherently to use. A lot of people don't like it, don't play it nowadays, because you can't use it in the damage step. Damage step only evolves around specifically changing attack and defense. Reverse Trap affects cards specifically, so it doesn't work with that. So when you wait till the damage step is when you can use a card like Reinforcements, not Waboku, not Reverse Trap. But the thing is, that I think a lot of people don't realize is that it's very easy to predict for an opportunity to use Reverse Trap. Because if you have a Login on the field, and your opponent summons a Battle Ox, and they go in the battle phase, ding, 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 something's up. Why are they attacking into this? So you might want to already prematurely activate Reverse Trap when they declare the attack. That way, they're either forced to use a Waboku to save their own monster, or to just lose it. Basically, because the other thing that people don't realize is that they have to declare, or at least question the opposing player, hey, is this going to go in the damage step? Or is this battle step or damage step? What are we in here? Because you can't just assume it is the damage step upon attack declaration. It's not the first thing into the battle phase. So when they ask that, you can go, no, not yet, Reverse Trap, basically. So there's a lot of easy ways to use Reverse Trap that players don't, I guess, consider when using it, that it still makes it usable. And I think that mentality is really interesting, that people don't really use against. This is kind of like a pseudo-tech tech video part, but the point is the deck is the anti-meta deck, and those are like the two main cards you kind of use in it. I threw in Wicked Worm Beast because I'm not the biggest fan of Worm Beast, but if you're gonna have an anti-meta deck, might as well have a card like that. I wouldn't rather have a weird tech combination like the Inexperienced Spy and Card Destruction, or Ancient Telescope and Card Destruction. No. To quote William Shakespeare, no. Anyway, so it's a fun concept for a deck. I like talking about the cards. I think it's interesting to talk about a deck kind of like this in theory. Sort of anti-meta strategy. It could possibly work, depending on what the meta is more like. If there's more dragon decks, you could run just a deck with Dragon Capture Jar in the main deck, or just whatever, basically. But the concept's interesting. I like talking about the cards, and yeah, thanks for sharing the deck with me. Alright, so the next deck I would like to talk about is a Zoo deck. I don't play Magic the Gathering. Some people at college years ago actually taught me how to play. It's like Duel Masters, right? I know the Zoo deck exists, which is like a gumbo, if you will, of various other races of monsters, of creatures. And I wanted to make my own take of that in Yu-Gi-Oh! So this is what I came up with. I initially had a more monster-heavy, super aggro build, but I felt it was a bit too bricky. So what I did here was I added 3 lower attack monsters in Dragon Zombie, Great White, and Skull Red Bird. So these monsters are kind of interesting because while top players don't use field spells, I'm also playing Umi Beatdown, but for top players, they don't play field spells, and rightfully so. There's a lot of issues with field spells, but ever since I opened the floodgates, pun intended, or not intended, you tell me, with Umi Beatdown, more players have been trying out field spell cards, more than just the Yami variants, which Yami is the worst one. But because of that, many players could be trying out field spells, at least in a more casual play, which I'm all down for. I'm all down for making more cards more playable, but field spells have a lot of issues because a lot of them help out your opponent, and that's bad if they gain the momentum. Hence me loving Umi Beatdown and Wasteland to an extent, which I'll get into later in this video. But with this deck, the Zoo, I wanted to incorporate more of a beatdown vibe with it. I've talked about it in one of my tech videos, the benefits of Ryukushin Powered being that 1600 attack monster. It's the strongest of the 16 attack monsters, and it's the strongest one below Battleox and Neo. I would rank Battleox below Neo personally because of Yami, but whatever. But with this, I wanted to incorporate a variety of the monsters. Initially, I had 2 Redbirds, zombies, and Great White Sharks in there, but I wanted to make it a bit more consistent, so I cut them each down to 1 each. The reason why, because while field spells can be more popular in casual settings, I wanted a deck that is sort of like an anti-field deck in a way. You could side out more of these cards depending on what you're playing against, the ratios of which, but you have plenty of varieties. You have spellcasters, beast warriors, insects, rocks, fish, birds, winged beasts, and zombies. You have every type of card that could be affected by a field spell card, which is good. So you're setting yourself up for getting some sort of advantage, more so in games 2 and 3. Game 1, you can still get some advantage. Your opponent happens to have a mountain. You got Skull Redbird. They have Umi. You got Great White, Wasteland, Dragon Zombie, Sogen or Forest, Battleox, Yami, Neo, and La Jin. You have an advantage for every one of those field spells in here. And I threw in a D-spell in the main deck, so you can actually even kind of control the field in a way. You could add another D-spell if you wanted more of a control variant. I did add 2 ultimate offerings, because this card is actually, like, really good, that people kind of sleep on, which kind of keeps up that advantage of the more aggressive build of this, hence why I only have 2 Giant Soldier Stones, 2 defensive walls in this build, because I wanted to go more on the more super aggro side. Again, these are just my kind of decks I threw in together with some ideas of deck theory. The ratios can be changed and adjusted to your liking, but I kind of like this deck. I wasn't sure how it was going to work out when I first started building it, but I like the idea behind it, and that's kind of the fun part of this video, is the ideas, because the thing I like about 2002 Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that the card pool is so limited. You have to be so creative with such a small card pool, and a lot of times it makes something really fun, and that's what I like about this format. And if I can make more people play not just 2002 Yu-Gi-Oh, but other retro formats as well, going up to GOAT formats, you know, it's good. And I like, that's kind of the goal of these videos, to help inspire and get people to play these older formats, stuff that we grew up on, stuff that's not as complicated and crazy power scaling evolving like modern Yu-Gi-Oh, which I do like stuff in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, but this is becoming a tangent, so let's just move on. Alright, so number 3, we got Dragon Souls, or Soul Dragons, whatever you want to call it. I initially called it Soul Dragons, but I think Dragon Souls has a better ring to it, so I'm gonna call it that. This is a sort of mishmash deck, in a sense, where I took dragon decks and I sort of mished it together. Is mish even a word? With I crammed it together and formed a new cake with soul control. So instead of having just a deck relying on Fluta Summoning Dragon and Lord of D, I wanted to make a more Turbo Dragon deck? Dragon Turbo? I don't know the words or words. And so this is a build I came up with. So it uses Soul Exchange as kind of the primary card with Curse of Dragon, because Curse of Dragon, sadly, it's the strongest one tribute monster for dragons. So with Curse of Dragon, you can tribute your opponent's monsters, summon your own dragons. I did throw in a kind of smaller Lord of D engine in there. I only had 1 Fluid Summon Dragon, 2 Lord of D, because you can still protect your monsters, you can still bait out trap holes, and it's still a good way to get Blue Eyes White Dragon. You could take a Blue Eyes out, you know, change the ratio a little bit. I did add 1 Mountain, and I said previously I'm not a big fan of most of the field spell cards. In this format, I actually have another Mountain deck. I'm probably going to showcase in the next one, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't to keep up to date when I post that, hopefully sometime soon-ish. Don't know when this is going to be uploaded, after I finish editing it, but you know, we'll see. But I did want to add Mountain to this, because Curse of D, the problem with him is that he cannot attack over a Giant Soldier Stone, and that's kind of a problem with Curse of Dragon. And since it's a dragon deck, you kind of have to play him instead of a Judge Man or a Summon Skull or a Soul Control deck, because this is Dragon Souls. Because you can use him with Lord of D, Fluid Summoning Dragon, all that stuff. And with Mountain, he is boosted to Judge Man levels, and will also allow him to attack over Giant Soldier Stone. But it does not require Mountain to be part of the build per se, so I only needed to add 1 to it for that small boost that was kind of needed for the main engine of the deck to start really running. But otherwise, I like the build. Has very specific cards. Card Destruction, if you just majorly brick, you might want to use that. Soul Exchange for Curse of Dragon, for Summoning for just any inherent dragons is not necessary either. Again, the ratios can be changed and adjusted to your liking, but this is a build that I found myself enjoying the most. You got the 2 Sword Revealing a Light to show your opponent's face-down monster, so you can really get in for that damage. So, yeah, it's I enjoy the concept of the deck, the mix mash of the dragons, the soul control. So that was the idea, and yeah, that's about all I got for that. Alright, for the next deck, I got zombies. I did have a zombie equip build, but I went with this more pure variant. I probably will showcase the zombie equip in a future video. But this one I like, because as I mentioned with 1600 attack monsters, how they aren't bad. The strongest one you got is Dragon Zombie. And with Wasteland, I would say next to Umi. Like, Umi is the top field spell, obviously. But below that, like, right there, probably be Wasteland, I would argue. Because it powers very specific monsters. The primary one for this deck would be your Dragon Zombie, to boost them up to 1800 attack. It also boosts your Giant Soldier Stone to a 2200 defensive thick beefy boy wall. And that is pretty tough to get across. It forces your opponent to use a reinforcement with their Law Jin or stronger cards, whether it's a Fissure, Darkhold, Raigeki, Summon, Scald, Soul Exchange, like much more things that you have to use to deal with. Now, it does increase your opponent's Soldier Stone, and since Soldier of Stone is kind of the popular wall choice of the current meta, that could present an issue. But the thing with Stone is that he is mostly used as a defensive card, so there's a good chance it could just end up becoming like a stall game, and like that's not the worst thing that could possibly happen, because you have Dragon Zombie who still gets that buff, so you still have strong monsters on your side that Soldier Stone can't just attack over with. So it's not as bad as a drawback as, let's say, a Sogen or a Force, as boosting your opponent's battle locks. So, similar to the last deck, I only needed to add one. You'd probably want to sight in more if your opponent ends up sighting in D-Spells, Arm Ninja, whatever, other field spell cards that would destroy yours. So I like the concept of it. It's similar to other kind of decks that I've made. Sort of like this style. Same with like fusion decks. They're all kind of more of engines, more so, which you can still use. But I do like the Wasteland variant for the zombies and Giant Soldier Stone, because it works twofolds, both offensively and defensively. I think that's a good buff. Again, it does have its drawbacks. Dragon Zombie, 0 defense. It helps your opponent's Soldier Stones, but it's not the worst thing that could happen, that could come out of this field spell that would happen with other ones. But I did like it. I do like the build overall, I would say. And yeah, I would probably talk about my equip on the next one, so definitely stay tuned for that. Or the one after that. I don't know. We'll see. There could be a lot more decks we talk about. Maybe. We'll see. Alright, so the last deck I want to talk about was another deck that was recommended to me in the comment section of my previous one. In the last video, I did talk about Beast deck, but this one is specifically a Beast Warrior deck. Yeah, another field spell. I might as well use them all. So, with this one, you use Sogen instead of Forest. Now, with Sogen, it does not boost Beast monsters, so you can't use Wicked Worm Beast in this. But there are benefits otherwise. It does boost your battle locks, which you gotta be wary for your opponent, which is the main concern using Sogen. But you're also running Koji Kosi, which has 1500 attack, which boosts to 17, which is respectable attack. So that's why I'm only running 2 of him. The main card you're probably noticing here is Rude Kaiser. Now, Judge Man is probably the better choice, because he gets the boost from Sogen. Same Earth Warrior monster, as Rude Kaiser is a Beast Warrior. I do have a Warrior Equip deck, similar to the Zombie Equip, which I could talk about in a future video. That I'm also a big fan. Let me reverse that, try that again. Which I'm also a big fan of. But with Rude Kaiser, the thing I kind of like about him, other than like the sick art, I mean the green and the silver and like the thick line art, like it's chef's kiss. He has good defense, better defense than Judge Man by 100. Judgment with the Sogen boost, 1700 is, again, 1700 is a respectable amount. Rukaiser, he's got 18, so he cannot be attacked by a Law Jin if you decide to tribute or use a Soul Exchange, which is why I added 1 in the deck, to set him to sort of bluff your opponent, similar to a Gyakutenu Megami strat with Rukaiser, where you can set him and have your opponent attack into it to flip it to protect it from being trap hold. And you can attack mode, and then all of a sudden you got 2000 attack beater there. So that's the main reason why I threw him in, because other than he was the recommended card, my first initial reaction was just use Judgment, which is probably better, but this plays around trap hole, and I just want to throw in the option for that, throw in the idea of playing more cards, which again, I am all down for. So through Kaiser, you got that defensive, you got that offensive, which is a bit more evenly distributed. I wish he had at least 100 attack more, because that way his initial attack would be better than Login, Sogen Boost would be better than Giant Soldier, which is typically the main problem because Soldier is such a pain in the ass. So that was the only thing I wish Rukaiser had better. I don't know why they printed out some of these monsters. I mean, I guess in older OCG formats that was kind of the thing, but in the TCG, would have hurt Konami to say, hey, let's just boost these cards for the TCG versions a little bit more. Hell, I hope we see Rukaiser support one of these days. I'm just saying. So with Rukaiser, I like it for that. That's why I added 2 field spells, because this is more reliant on the field spell than the previous decks were. But I like the concept of it. It's not super, super heavy in its gimmick. And again, you can change cards out. You could just play normal decks, but, you know, I like to have fun. So what can I say? So let me know what you think about this video, what decks you like, what changes you would make, what other decks would you suggest for future videos, or just other content in general. And if you want to definitely tell me to do a video, check out my Patreon for further information, and check out my merch, which is all in the description below. I got a Teespring, or just called Spring now, for YouTube merch, and one for my own designs, well, both my own designs, but this one's more specifically with a lot of cool Yu-Gi-Oh merch, like a Metal Dragon one and a Great White Yumi one. It's really sick, so definitely check that out. And until I see you all next time, have a wonderful day.
My grandpa's deck has no pathetic cards, Kaiba.